today and went, whoa, whoa. We have Dr. Fuhrman in the house, in the classroom today. And so get your questions ready and do all that stuff. Start calling, texting, tagging, liking, following, do everything that you need to do to help grow the classroom. And so let me go ahead and get going here. Now we are recording for all of you to be a part of the classroom with Dr. Joel Fuhrman. Today we're going to talk about, people are so excited about a vegan diet, but sometimes not so good for some people. And this is why. Dr. Fuhrman is in the classroom today to teach us a new truth about thriving in a vegan diet, or maybe why you're not thriving. So fasten your seatbelt. We're going to learn and grow together. It's time to dance, Dr. Fuhrman. Maybe I can get a head bop today.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, as you know, it is always so exciting when Dr. Joel Fuhrman comes into the classroom, and we know that it's time to have our G-bombs. Every day we need to have our G-bombs. We think of a whole food plant-based diet or lifestyle as something that's really good for us. And we also think about a vegan diet as optimal health. But what could cause someone to not thrive in a vegan diet? Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who is a New York Times bestselling author, an incredible doctor, speaker, teacher, a wonderful guy, just an overall wonderful guy, is going to share with us today, with all his years of knowledge, what it is that we need to know that we may not know about a vegan diet. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Dr. Joel Fuhrman is back to teach us just that. Welcome back, Dr. Fuhrman.
Hi, Lily. Great to be here.
Hey, it's so nice to see you, especially when you came on today. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. We are here and we're together. And for those of you who have any questions, type in a Q and write your question after that. And then as soon as we can get to it, we will ask the questions. But for now, Dr. Fuhrman, I mean, you've heard of the vegan mentality where, you can have potato chips and Diet Coke and be a vegan. So let's talk about this mentality where you don't necessarily thrive in a vegan diet.
Well, it's a very interesting time in which we live. It's that, obviously we should start with explaining that a vegan diet or a totally plant-based diet, because plant-based is unclear. What does that mean, plant-based? What percent of your diet is based on plants versus what percent you're still permitting animal products? The word plant-based doesn't mean vegan. Vegan is a philosophy, not a diet. Okay. It's a person that's, not going to wear leather or use honey or do anything that might impair animals in any way. But so we're talking about people that adopt a whole foods plant-based diet that's 100% plant, originates from plants. Now, I call a diet that's predominantly plant-based maybe 90 to 100% plant-based, that's designed to be nutritionally excellent to extend human lifespan. I call it a Nutritarian diet.
Of course, of
The
course.
Nutritarian diet specifically is a type of plant-based diet that people adopt for optimal health and longevity. And when you analyze and study every parameter that extends human lifespan and incorporate that in the totality to a diet with a full dietary portfolio, then that most protective diet also works most effectively to reverse diseases that people already have, including lupus and psoriasis and fibromyalgia and asthma, and of course, heart disease and diabetes and things like high blood pressure, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that you get people so excited, enthusiastic about the healing potential of such a well-designed plant-based diet, and of course it launches a whole philosophical community of vegans that are so excited about protecting animals and about the health benefits. And there are tremendous health benefits to a vegan diet, especially to slow aging, protect against heart attacks and cancer. That they hide or don't give sufficient sharing the knowledge base, trying to hide the knowledge about the fact that there are some potential risks of a vegan diet, and there are some individuals that get into trouble on a vegan diet, even when it's carefully designed. I know you were starting out to say, well, a lot of vegans are unhealthy, because just because you're on a vegan diet doesn't mean you're eating a healthy diet. You could be living on, white bread and Impossible burgers mm-hmm. and white rice and a little bit of vegetables in there with too much, with apple juice, whatever it is you're eating. There was even a recent study came out in the Lancet last month that showed that vegans had double the risk of hip fractures in later life compared to those eating meat. And I posted a blog about that study on my blog, on my Eat to Live blog at drfuhrman.com. I posted a response to the study, and I showed the analysis of the diet those vegans were eating their diet was low in calcium and low in protein. And the fact that their diet was too low in protein as well as low in calcium led to more sarcopenia, or muscle wasting with aging, which then of course leads to osteoporosis and fractures. And I compared the analysis of those typical vegans from Britain in the study with a Nutritarian vegan diet, which then showed it had double the calcium and double the protein intake. The Nutritarian diet, we include the beans and the broccoli florets and the quinoa and the sunflower seeds and the hemp seeds and when you use all these anti-cancer foods, they have a lot of protein. And here's the kicker, is the most significant finding in nutritional science in the last decade really turns nutritional science upside down the way people thought. Because everybody thought that, and has been teaching this, and all the plant-based leaders are teaching this, and they're teaching that, excuse me, okay. They've been teaching that protein doesn't matter, and that the excess protein of animal products drives high IGF-1 and aging and cancer, which is true. The excess animal protein drives aging and IGF-1 and cancer, which is true. But they kind of give the impression that your diet can't be too low in protein. Protein doesn't matter. And the lower the protein you consume with plants, the better. And these studies showed the exact opposite. They showed this, that as you increase the animal protein in your diet, you have more chronic causes of death and premature death. But as you increase the plant protein in your diet, you get longer life and less cancer, more immune system strength, and more protection against infections in later life. These studies show that paying attention to having adequate plant protein, yes, substituting plant protein for animal protein, but as you do so and as you pay attention to have adequate plant protein, you get better health outcomes than just following a more traditional or vegan diet that isn't including those higher protein plants like soybeans and azuki beans and quinoa and broccoli florets and hemp seeds and Mediterranean pine nuts and sunflower seeds. And so a Nutritarian diet, because it's designed to be more protein adequate, is more acceptable for a toddler or a growing child, mm-hmm. where a traditional vegan diet would not be. And especially in the elderly, because especially in women too, because women develop reduced ability to absorb calcium as they age, and reduced ability to biologically absorb protein as they age. And they have a tendency to develop more sarcopenia and osteoporosis to begin with, because they're smaller boned and smaller muscled. So paying attention to having the extra calcium when you're aging, as calcium absorption goes down, even if you're postmenopausal and you need a little bit of extra calcium as a form of a supplement, not the high dose calcium people are taking like 1,000, 1,500 milligrams in one shot, but a little, a couple, maybe 100 or 200 with each meal, food-based calcium. So if you're not, and you know, some women have a small appetite, and they only need a small amount of calories. They're not that big, they're not that physically active, and their small amount of calories maybe isn't giving them the ideal amount of calcium and protein unless their diet is well designed. And well designing it, maybe with a little extra calcium, can be an issue, especially so as people are getting older. So there's too much, how I should say it, misinformation promoted by people promoting animal-based diets, and misinformation by people promoting vegan diets, because they're always biased for one point of view or the other. Oh, a vegan diet's no good. You have to get animal products to get enough iron and to get enough zinc and to get the DHA and to get the creatine. You need these nutrients to protect the brain. And then but of course, when you do that with animal products, then you develop other issues that are not good for you. You get too big, you get too much muscle replication, too much cellular replication, too much promotion of cancer. So the question is, if we look at the vegan diet for all its benefits it can afford people, we have to do so with the expertise and experience in my 3 decades of working with vegans, getting in trouble and analyzing their blood and seeing what the issues could be. And utilizing my experience, people are so reticent to say anything potentially negative about any person who hasn't thrived on a vegan diet, because they're so worried it'll make the vegan diet not look favorable in some way. And it becomes a religion to them.
Yes.
And I'm trying to make this pure science, and saying this information of where a person could get into trouble is important for people to know, and important for doctors and health professionals to know, because even though I've taken care of tens of, thousands of vegans over the years and seen issues, especially neurologic issues and mood issues and dementia issues and Parkinson's in healthy eating vegans that were very alarming, but other people are trying to cover that up, saying it doesn't exist, and bury this knowledge. And I'm saying you need to have this knowledge to give people the best and most accurate advice.
Absolutely. And I want to go back with the calcium, Dr. Fuhrman, because calcium has had such a huge boost in the market. It's a marketing campaign. Milk does the body good. Milk does the body good. Got milk, all that stuff. Let's talk about milk and calcium and how that is a myth that people, because a lot of people say, oh, I drink a lot of milk because I need calcium. Can you bust that myth?
Well, obviously we know that milk is the food most closely aligned to breast cancer in women and prostate cancer in men. Even worse than cheese. Milk is the worst. And milk, it's a food designed to rapidly make the cow grow very rapidly. So it's very effective at promoting heightened levels of IGF-1, which is a primary growth hormone that allows cells to replicate and promotes cancer cell replication, especially in increasing estrogen production, especially stimulating breast and prostate tissue. We find that, for example, the populations that have the highest dairy intake have the most breast cancer. The country, the Sweden, Norway, United States, Argentina, but it's not just meat. Milk is probably even worse than meat regarding to cancer promotion. But so it's not a great source of calcium either. We absorb calcium more effectively from things like kale and lettuces, but the bottom line is that a healthy diet, especially one that contains green vegetables, beans, nuts, other types, all vegetables of different color, has a sufficient amount of calcium. The issue with calcium is getting enough as people age, and also as their caloric intake and intake of food goes down lower. So for most of us, for me on a vegan diet, I eat a lot of calories. I'm eating probably, I eat probably 1,600 to 2,000 calories a day because I'm physically active and do a lot of exercise. But most people take in double the amount of calories they need, and they're overweight, but when you're eating the right amount of calories and you're adopting this philosophy that having a good muscle to fat ratio increases your lifespan. and we want our fat to be low. We want to watch our caloric intake, and some women to keep their fat levels below 25%. And I'm saying it's necessary to keep body fat below 25%. And because women's metabolism are slow and they slow down metabolically as they age, and as they kind of eat less to keep their fat stores below 25%, they could wind up taking too little calcium. I'm not, I'm not denying the fact that some women who have a tendency to develop osteoporosis, who are vegans, could do better with some supplemental calcium. This idea that supplements are never needed or never useful is another. There people are taking radical viewpoints and taking positions on issues that they don't really know much about. And we have to allow for individual differences and changes of different periods of life when supplementation may be appropriate. So even though I don't think it's necessary for most people to take a calcium supplement, particularly as women get older, particularly for postmenopausal women, it's probably wise and preventative for them, especially if they have lower caloric intake and lower body masses and smaller size.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make that clear. And also the same thing is true with protein. I mean, we have different amounts. This idea that you get plenty of protein. Sure, a Nutritarian diet is the highest protein plant-based diet you're going to ever eat, and it's protein adequate even for athletes. But as you age, protein bioavailability goes down, and there's some data from the scientific literature that increased risk of infections and cancers could increase as we age because of your level of protein and IGF-1 from going too low. And for those people getting older, the age of 75 and 80, getting muscle wasting, losing weight, showing deficiencies in strength and attention, they might even require more protein than a vegan diet could give them, even a properly designed vegan diet to give them. Mm-hmm. It might be advantageous for them to use a vegan-based protein powder with some pumpkin seed protein and hemp seed protein or pea protein mixed in together that professional athletes maybe use on a vegan diet, or that we're giving people who are elderly that are getting more muscle wasting, who need a little more concentrated calories, because again, they're not eating huge amounts of food. They're not eating large amounts of food because they don't need that much food, and to give them a little targeted protein. And there's some people who maybe require even an egg white a few times a week on top of that. We're not saying one diet fits all. We're making sure every person thrives and looking at them to make sure they're thriving, and not hold some philosophical viewpoint that prevents us from using a supplement or an animal product when it could be useful for this person's health and longevity. Mm-hmm. So even though I have more predilection and favoring a vegan type diet for general health, I'm still careful to make sure that nobody gets in trouble or doesn't thrive. The problem is when a person doesn't thrive and become, let's say, weak, fatigued, or anxiety or depression, or some problem with a vegan diet, you know what they do? They badmouth a vegan diet. They go back to eating lots of meat and fish, and they feel better. And you can't, now a vegan diet is dangerous because they didn't thrive on it.
Correct.
Instead of ascertaining, and I talked about this in my book, Eat for Life, I talked about that I'm not saying there's not a perfect different diet for each individual. A Nutritarian diet is still the core concept of diet favorability for everybody. But there are individual differences that require some tweaking of the diet, whether it's with supplements or a small amount of animal products, or to make it best for everybody. And it means that if you're not thriving on a vegan diet, you don't throw the whole thing away and go back to a high meat diet. You figure out what could you add to that? A little taurine, a little creatine, a little egg, maybe an egg white 3 times a week. So you still follow a Nutritarian diet with the tweaks you need. Because you needed something more, doesn't make a meat heavy diet now suddenly going to be right or healthy for you, because that's still going to hurt you in other ways.
Yes.
You still got to follow the vegetable heavy diet with all these healthy foods. So we're looking at these factors and discussing this today, that for people that aren't thriving appropriately, they're professionals, and the people who have some nutritional expertise should be able to advise them correctly, knowing what to look for. And so often they don't know anything. They deny the fact that there's anything wrong with their diet. And then you have people jumping back to eating meat-heavy diets again, because there's so much lack of information in this field, because people are afraid to talk about it. They're afraid to talk about, yes, people can get in trouble on a vegan diet in certain ways, and there's some tweaks you have to make to assure them that they thrive. Another issue would be zinc absorption. Zinc absorption goes down with aging. And zinc is a necessary nutrient to assure adequate immune function. And if we're not going to die of heart attacks and strokes and cancers, then the leading cause of death, hundreds of years ago was infections like pneumonia, right? So the studies already show that zinc supplementation in the elderly reduces risk of pneumonia. And certainly the ability to absorb zinc from plants is much less than the ability to absorb zinc from animal products. One advantage of eating animal products is you get better iron absorption, better zinc absorption, less binding of zinc from phytates. So giving people extra zinc, of course, could benefit them and does benefit them.
How much would be a normal dose of zinc, and how do you know? Because the last time I had my blood checked, my zinc levels were really high. And so I kind of backed down from the zinc.
Blood tests do not show zinc levels. Blood tests are not an accurate way to determine zinc levels.
Okay.
The zinc level in your blood.
That's good to know, because it said it was high.
Right. That has nothing to do with the zinc level in your body and in your cells. That's why we don't generally test the blood for zinc. It's not it gets you going down the wrong path.
Huh. I'm wondering why it showed that I had high levels of zinc in my test that I had done. I wonder if it's a different kind of test.
Yes, because zinc, no, it's a blood test for zinc. You can do the test, but it's not accurate because zinc in blood goes up and down through the day when you exercise, when you're breaking down tissue. It's the zinc level. It's not an accurate way to determine zinc levels through the blood.
Good to know. Good to know. I want to go back to protein, because that's a huge one. Every time somebody sees how I eat or whatever, they go, "Oh, where do you get your protein? Where do you get your protein?" And so let's talk about the beans and the G-bombs a little bit, about the positive protein levels that you can get from beans. But then people say to me, "Oh, I can't have beans because it gives me leaky gut." So there's that. How do you address someone that believes that beans are bad for you when I'm getting my protein for the most part from beans?
I don't think I'm getting my
too.
protein. Yeah, I don't think I'm getting more protein mostly from beans. I eat beans, but I have a half a cup of beans to a cup of beans a day. But I eat, vegetables and nuts and quinoa and I get protein from everything I eat. You know what I mean? So the whole diet. So if I took the beans out, I'd still have enough protein. But I also eat edamame, and I eat some tempeh, and I eat some tofu, and I have some soy milk and nut milks. But there's protein in every food except for fruit. Fruit has some protein, but not a lot. Bananas have like 3.5% protein. Fruit, but everything other than fruit has adequate protein, giving you about 35 grams of protein per 1,000 calories. So when you're eating 1,500 calories, you're probably getting about 50 grams of protein a day. If you're an athlete and doing more exercise, you're a bigger person requiring 2,000 calories a day, you're probably getting about 70 grams of protein a day. And we can tweak that a little bit based on need, but you're getting plenty of protein, and even enough protein without the beans for most people. But beans are an excellent source of protein, but most important, beans themselves extend lifespan, and they have very powerful anti-cancer benefits. And rather than cause leaky gut, they protect the gut, because beans are so high in resistant starch and fiber that they're broken down by bacteria that create a biofilm over the villi. Doing the opposite of leaky gut, they actually prevent the absorption of glucose from other foods because they're so protective to the gut. This idea that beans cause leaky gut is just it's not true. And it's something promoted by these people telling people that lectins from beans are destroying your gut. And lectins from beans can destroy your gut if you eat raw beans, but who's eating raw beans? We're not eating them raw. But I guess the message here that people should leave with is that it's important to cook your beans until soft. Because if you don't cook your beans, especially things like cannoli beans and red kidney beans and navy beans, if you don't cook them till they're soft, they could have a gluten in it that could irritate the gut wall. But that only happened decades ago and years ago when people didn't know that beans had to be adequately cooked, or they're sprouting the big beans and eating them when they're not totally sprouted. But basically, beans are not an issue. We just cook them. We put them in a soup. Usually we soak them overnight. we start the soup going with the beans in them, and we're putting the rest of the ingredients in, and the beans are in the boiling water for about 2 hours. So we make sure they're really softened, and then we put the soup away in the refrigerator. And when you buy a canned bean, of course, there's no risk there either. So the dangerous agglutinins, that type of lectin that can cause danger to the gut, is destroyed by cooking adequately, and is not a risk on a vegan diet. And people who don't digest beans well and feel indigestion or symptomatic from eating beans, it's because they haven't developed enough of the right type of bacteria to digest the beans in their gut. So they have to eat a small amount of beans and make sure they liquefy them in their mouth. They chew them so well, so they swallow them as a liquid. Because only when you liquefy them and they're ground that well, can they be used to create a healthy bacteria. If they're going down in clumps, it's just going to create indigestion. And then the body will start to create the healthy bacteria over time. And this person will be able to gradually increase and tolerate digesting and eating more beans in their diet over time, until they can do a half a cup a day if they want to, but they maybe only can start with a tablespoon a day, chewed really well.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny because when we got started today, we were just so excited that you were on. I want all of you to know, I forgot to tell you this, but now I remember, because I remember everything. We're giving away 2 books today, 2 copies of Eat for Life, Dr. Joel Fuhrman's latest book, Eat for Life, and 2 of you will get a copy. So what you need to do is you need to text me. You need to claim it on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're at, or BitChute. Just claim, I am reclaiming my health back. And then text me at 407-373-5959. All of you who text me will then be entered into the winner's basket. And then on Friday, no, actually, I'm going to wait till Monday. On Monday, because normally Dr. Fuhrman's on Wednesday, so Friday makes sense. But I'm going to let all of you who are listening on podcasts and watching on BitChute later on to go ahead, or in Facebook, YouTube, or whatever, to go ahead and text me 407-373-5959, and you too will have the opportunity. So on Monday, I will go ahead and get you that. I'll draw 2 names out. So make sure you claim it on your phone. Text me 407-373-5959. The book is Eat for Life. Okay, Dr. Fuhrman, what else? What else do we need to know about thriving, or what could cause us not to thrive on a vegan diet?
Well, it wouldn't be a proper topic today if we didn't talk about B12 somewhat, because that's the most common deficiency in a vegan diet is B12. Mm-hmm. But people should know that the RDI for B12 of 4 to 5 micrograms a day isn't enough for a vegan, because you're not eating any B12. You're taking it in the form of a pill. When you take it all at once, where it goes down into your digestive tract at one time, your body is even worse at absorbing it. If you had it stretched out, a little bit of egg and a little bit of meat and a little bit of this and a little bit of supplements stretched out through the day, you'd absorb it a little bit at a time. But when you're taking it as a pill at one time, your body doesn't absorb it so well. So they need higher amounts of B12 than non-vegans need. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Even people who eat meat can develop pernicious anemia, and the ability to, as they age, for intrinsic factor, the substance that enables B12 to be absorbed can go down with aging, and some elderly people can need more B12 in spite of the fact that they eat meat regularly. Mm-hmm. So B12 is something we have to consider, and so people should be checking every 5 years at least their B12 level, which is not an accurate test, by the way, for B12 needs. They should also check their homocysteine and their MMA, methylmalonic acid. When you have the homocysteine and MMA, methylmalonic acid checked, then you increase the accuracy of the B12 determinant, because a low level with a high MMA could be B12 deficiency, even though the low level of B12 in your blood is normal. It looks normal, but somewhat on the low side. Now you know if it's really bad or not, because your homocysteine will start to elevate. So we're talking here about checking those tests. And B12 is a deficiency that can cause permanent brain damage. Yeah. You can get, in my experience over the last 30 years, I've seen people who had nerve damage to their legs where they couldn't even walk. They had to be wheelchair confined or carried into my office due to being vegan with B12 deficiency.
But isn't that criminal that somebody would get to that point that nobody thought of checking their B12? or to check where they're at in their
It's unbelievable. I saw it today. Just today, I saw a person on the Dr. Fuhrman Ask the Doctor forum. People ask me questions in my forum on the website at drfuhrman.com, and people come and join there to ask me questions. And a person just today told me that this person in good health with all these blood tests is paralyzed, can't walk, and can't feel their feet. And I'm saying they're numb and they can't walk and they can't feel their feet. And they're all these doctors, this whole workup, and no doctor checked their B12, homocysteine, or MMA. As I saw it today, just today, I saw this happen. Another time, nobody even checked.
Unbelievable.
Doctors don't think about it. They went to neurologists. They went to this. Nobody even thought that they didn't do it.
Yes. Yeah. All this information. You need to get the book. I finally got the book. So thank you, Robert. He just handed it to me. Okay. So what else, Dr. Fuhrman?
And the most common issues that I've seen in my career in the problem with vegans, besides being depression and anxiety, but the most common issue I've seen is as they age, really super healthy people living a long life, developing dementia and cognitive impairment with aging. That's what I've seen the most of. And so many of my friends and mentors, the people I respected when I was a teenager, because they were leaders in the natural hygiene movement of healthy eating, so many of them developed Parkinson's disease. And I was like shocked. How could all these healthy people develop Parkinson's disease? They ate organic. They ate mostly vegetables. They weren't eating junk food. They were a natural hygienist advocating eating naturally grown food. How did they get Parkinson's? We're talking here. Kiki Sidwa was a wonderful, warm human being, a tremendously knowledgeable man who developed Parkinson's. And Herbert Shelton himself, the founder of the American Natural Hygiene Society, developed Parkinson's. And all these, there weren't isolated instances. There were numerous people who I knew on the board of directors and doctors running these groups that developed Parkinson's. It would behoove me. It had to make my effort. So what is the relation here with these people developing neurologic problems and Parkinson's and dementia as they age? Virginia Vetrano, super healthy, wonderful woman, brilliant physician, developed dementia in her later years. Some of my friends developed and they lived a long time too. And they probably would have never gotten dementia on an American diet because they probably would have died younger. You know what I mean? They would have been dead if they were 80 or 85. The fact they lived to be 90, 95, they're now demented in their 90s, that would have never shown up on eating American foods. They never would have lived that long.
Correct.
But if you're going to live that long, you might as well keep your brain intact. You follow what I'm saying?
So what do you attribute that some of these people that were healthy, I mean, what was missing? In your research, have you come to a conclusion of what is missing that could cause dementia? Because I've as a life coach, DHA. Okay. DHA. Yeah.
In other words, when I saw these people as patients, and as a physician, I've had the unique experience, probably in the world, of being connected with the American Natural Hygiene Society, the American Vegan Society. There were hardly any vegans back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Very hard. Now there's zillions of vegans, but so the vegans that have adopted a vegan diet today aren't in their 90s and 80s and 90s. The people who I saw as patients who became, in their 80s and 90s and eventually passed away, I had a unique experience to see long-term vegans to develop these problems and to draw blood tests on them and to see and some of them who developed these problems not only had low DHA, they had non-existent DHA. It was almost zero. They didn't even show up on a test, and then when I, of course, report this information or talk about it, sometimes I could be attacked by people in the vegan community, thinking that I'm trying to, talk bad about a vegan diet. But it's really
trying to warn people.
So important.
Yes.
Because not only because I had this unique experience, and not only this experience is so important, and my experience in treating vegans back to good health who have these problems, but also the documentation and the corroboration, the medical literature. There already is adequate studies to document that low levels of omega-3 maintained for long periods of time in life leads to brain shrinkage and cognitive impairment with aging. This is just a fact that has to be realized. And at this point in my career, I advocate people strive for an omega-3 index above 5 even, because of the studies that have come out. If you're going to live that long, why not have adequate brain health as we age and keep our omega-3 index above 5? I do produce a vegan DHA EPA supplement because I needed to produce it because I have vegan customers, patients, friends, and family, and I don't want them to use a product that's not fresh And it's not just promoting my product, it's that I want to make sure that people have something they can use, and it's something that I can use and my friends and family can use.
Yeah.
So we have it make in small amounts, because we're not selling it through Whole Foods Market or through GNC. We're just selling it. I'm just selling it for people who are my, patients and guests and friends and things like that through the web. But the point is that we have a unique product that's vegan DHA that we keep in a dark glass bottle, and we keep it refrigerated, and we even have it shipped to us in refrigerated trucks to prevent rancidity, so people can use a fresh source of DHA without having to get it from fish. So
do you keep it in your refrigerator? Because I want to get to, by the way, you can go onto my website and it takes you right to Dr. Fuhrman's page. So you can go to whenyouneedafriend.com. We also have his boot camp there. You can click on that, and we can also click on for his vitamins or whatever you like to do. But I would like to get we should give away some of your DHA in the future. And instead of books, we should, bring that out, because I'm looking for a healthy DHA that I can trust. And it's amazing. The industry is not, as I've researched the industry, there's a lot of corruption for these omega-3s that are out there. I don't know if you know.
That's why I got into. That's why I had to make my own, because when I started back, I don't know when it was, maybe 15 years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, when I noticed that people, when I was wanting to check blood levels for people for DHA and for omega-3 index back then, because I noticed so many people getting in trouble. And I looked for studies, because I saw these people developing Parkinson's. And I said, what's the relationship between DHA and fatty acids in the brain and Parkinson's? And I found, yes, in monkeys, we have studies that show that low levels increase our susceptibility to toxins from the environment and from the pesticides used on foods, that we have more potential damage from those toxins when your DHA levels are low. So it's not that DHA causes the Parkinson's, but it allows other things to cause the Parkinson's more readily. So yes, so I started getting into it back then, and so many people felt they had indigestion from the DHA or a foul taste in their mouth, and I started cutting them open and biting into them rather than swallowing them to see what they tasted like, and they tasted like gasoline. And I sent them out to laboratories to be tested and see what is in them that makes them so foul. And it was just that the oils become rotten over time. It's called a TBA score. It means it's the amount of rancidity in the oil when kept at room temperature for months and months and months. So that's when I originally said, we got to get into making our own. I can't just be sending people to take rotten DHA when they need it. And I want myself to take it and my friends and family to take it. I can't be taking rotten stuff in my body, because, that's one of the important principles of the Nutritarian diet. And that's avoiding poisons and toxins, not just eating the right food, but not putting the wrong stuff in your mouth. Yes. And the poison or toxin we're talking about is folic acid. That's a poison. Don't take folic acid from a supplement. Rotten fish oil or rotten DHA that tastes like gasoline. That's poisonous. We're talking about mercury and microplastics in small fish and all these. We dump 1,000 tons of plastic into the ocean every hour, and then people think now fish is a good food, but it's toxic. It's poisoned by the plastics now. Yes. So looking for good quality food and uncontaminated supplements and things like that become like my kind of thing, to give people the best and not to just water it down, telling people what they want to hear, or make. And so rather than be philosophical based or trying to advocate one viewpoint, I really wanted people to do something with their full awareness and knowledge. They make sure they don't get into trouble.
Yeah, I really like that. I liked what you said at the beginning, that veganism was really a philosophy. It started off as a philosophy, and people have turned it into a diet. And as I've studied world religions, the same thing is with Buddhism. Buddhism is it's a philosophy, it's a way of life, and people have turned it into a religion. And so, we have this tendency to and this is one thing that I've been doing a couple of Bible studies with Dr. Lorraine Day. This is one of the things that she says, we're like sheep, but we're following the wrong shepherd. We're following the wrong shepherd. And I love that image that, here we are. It's not about being vegan. It's about being healthy. And how does that look like? Or it's not about, following a church. It's about being a good person and following the God of the Bible. And so, I love that comparison. Is there anything else, Dr. Fuhrman, before we start asking questions? Because there's lots of questions here for you.
Well, there's lots of individual things people could be deficient in. Even people who become depressed, they go to a vegan diet and they become depressed or anxious, and they could be low in cholesterol, for example, because the brain needs some cholesterol. Maybe their cholesterols are super low, maybe went too low, could increase risk of depression. Maybe they need more taurine, tryptophan, and creatine, because some people don't make creatine well on a vegan diet. And even creatine deficiency has been linked in medical studies to increased risk of depression in vegans. So I'm not, I'm the, how should you say, the Sherlock Holmes to try to uncover and get this person well again, and to ascertain what it is they're lacking and give them what they're lacking. And lo and behold, they're giving them more NPA, giving them a little creatine, giving them a little taurine, giving them a little whatever, to make sure that what they're missing, that they're not missing something, could have contributed to the problem. Even iron deficiency anemia. We always talk about the dangers of heme iron with meat and how excess iron can cause inflammation, increasing heart attack risk, which is true. Heme iron is a risk factor. But it doesn't mean that some women particularly, or some people, don't absorb iron well. There are just some people that become iron deficient unless they eat meat. And the iron deficiency could lead to the fatigue and mental problems and hair loss and lack of thriving ability. And those people, they don't have to go back on meat, but they do need some iron supplementation to make sure their iron levels are adequate. And we measure iron levels to see if the people need more by checking a blood level, a blood test called a ferritin. You don't check an iron level for iron, you check a ferritin for iron, because ferritin is a more accurate indicator of your iron stores. Now, likewise, I'm not saying that most people on vegan diets need to take iron. Most people don't need to take iron. I'm not saying most people on vegan diets should be taking creatine. It's only a very, or taurine, very small amount. But we still have to be aware of the potential possibility of some people being low, which is completely denied by this community and by most experts and advocates of plant-based diets. Don't understand and don't know about, because they haven't seen enough patients. They haven't been in primary care practice treating people with this type of diet for the decades to see the variance of problems that can develop, and analyzing and helping these people. So they don't really, not bragging, but they don't have that experience in most cases. But a lot of them I've mentored and have worked with me and have learned from me. There are a lot of good doctors out there in this field, but there are a lot of bad ones, or people that don't have the knowledge as well. There's both.
Well, you made a great point when you met with us in our small group that for the I Am the Solution workshop. You made a great point that because I had said something about doctors don't have a good education when it comes to that. And you brought up a point that, well, even nutritionists don't have the right information. So
right.
we really have to research here and take advantage of your research.
I know people are always saying, why don't doctors know about nutrition and doctors don't get nutritional training? And I disagree with that, because I say, well, the dietitians don't have good nutritional training, and then nobody, the doctors aren't going to be there to spend time with you to teach you about nutrition anyway. It's not their field of specialty. Your postman doesn't have nutritional training either. The doctor just writes prescriptions, gives people drugs. He's not a nutritionist. So the fact that and the time you get a problem and are looking for a doctor to try to teach you what to do is too late anyway. It's like I always give the analogy of going to a doctor after you get lung cancer and he tells you to quit smoking, because that's the way the cardiologists work. They wait till a person has advanced heart disease, and then they tell them to cut the salt out of their diet or lower the salt intake and eat better once they really have an advanced disease. We don't tell the general population, the kids, the teenagers, the young people, to eat healthy and cut the salt out of their diet. We wait till they have advanced heart disease, and then we tell them that. It's insanity,
Yeah, it really is. I truly believe that if we change our children, if we start with our children, that we would eliminate disease. There are other reasons why people have disease, like emotional problems, trauma, and I totally get that. But nutrition plays a key role in how people are. So I love your honesty about this, and I know, Dr. Fuhrman, that you've taken a lot of bullets for stepping out and saying, hey, wake up. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be vegan. I'm saying be aware that these are some of the things that could harm you if you don't look into it. So it's brilliant. I know that's a good way you could solve a lot of adult diseases. If people stopped having children altogether, we wouldn't see many adult diseases. You're so funny. You're so funny. Okay, so I want to take very little time acknowledging my sponsors, but I do need to acknowledge my sponsors. I want you guys to go to whenyounneedafriend.com. Please subscribe while you're there. Also, like and follow all my social media. The classroom is being garbled by algorithms, so I need your help to like and follow, make comments. All the time you do that, it just helps the classroom grow as well. Go check out my sponsors like Keep Me Safe Organics, First Alternative Care, Telemedicine, the Pharmacy in Merritt Island, Geyer Wellness Group, Right Whale Health, all my affiliate programs like Ground Therapy, Brain Tap, Avasia, and now we've got the BFR bands. I don't know if Dr. Fuhrman has ever done one of those, but love them. I'm getting my muscle back is what's happening. So please support my sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. And you can become an enrolled student and donate to the classroom, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month, whatever you can do. Please, by time, talent, treasure, anything that you can do to help grow the classroom, because there's a lot of censorship right now with this information. For some reason, this information is threatening to the pharmaceutical industry or to other industries. And we want to make sure that we keep this information going. So please help me grow the classroom. So today we're talking with Dr. Joel Fuhrman. I want to remind you that we're going to be giving away 2 books of the Eat for Life. So text me at 407-373-5959 that you want your health back. Claim it in the social media as well. So Dr. Fuhrman, is there anything else before we start going into the questions? We only have like 10 minutes. Is there anything else that you have that you'd like to make us aware of?
No, the only thing we didn't cover, which has nothing to do too much with vegan diets, is vitamin D deficiency. I see so many overweight people coming to my retreat here that even though they're taking some vitamin D maybe, they're still severely vitamin D deficient because the fat cells sequester vitamin D. And you have an increased needs for vitamin D when you're more overweight. And some people, because of their skin color or history, don't absorb it from the sun as well. And you don't absorb it from the sun unless it's the heat of the sun or the middle of the day anyway, increasing your risk of wrinkles and skin cancer. So it's just another thing to be aware of that should be checked with a blood test, awareness. It's not worse on a vegan diet versus a non-vegan diet because it's mostly the sunshine vitamin, but it's still something I see a lot of. Just this week, I took some blood on people that arrived here to stay in our retreat, and 2 of them had vitamin D levels below 10. I mean, they're of course they have indigestion, cramping muscles, inability to walk, and spasm in their legs, and and it's going to cause all kinds of symptoms, and nobody checks these things.
It's criminal. It is just criminal if a doctor doesn't check those basic things. Okay, so I've got a question. Is there any concerns with taking brewer's yeast, nutritional yeast daily? And then they added without the added folic acid, of course.
Yes, that's the risk, is that it can expose people because they put synthetic folic acid in, which could penetrate cells and cause excessive amount of cellular replication, including increased risk of prostate cancer and breast cancer. I've been, yelling this from the rooftop. Don't take folic acid. Don't take conventional supplements with folic acid in them, and don't take nutritional yeast. It's hard to find unfortified nutritional yeast, but we use unfortified nutritional yeast in moderate amounts. You can use it daily in moderate amounts. Sure, it's okay. I don't have people taking it thinking that that's going to be their health food for the day, but they're using it mostly as a flavoring. But of course, they're looking to get unfortified nutritional yeast.
What would be a good alternative for yeast, nutritional yeast as flavoring for food, if that's what they're using it for? What would be an alternative for that?
Well, we use something here, we call it Dukkah, D-U-K-K-A-H. Dukkah, it's something we make by lightly toasting hazelnuts and sesame seeds and blending them with some lightly toasted coriander and turmeric and other tarragon, some other types of seeded herbs that we lightly toast, and we grind it all to a powder, and they sprinkle this herbal toasted nut powder, kind of speak, called a Dukkah, on their vegetables, which tastes really good.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. That sounds really good.
A lot of sauces
do you sell that?
We don't sell dukkha per se, but it's in which we give my books and on the website, we have recipes of how to make it.
Well, I'm
You know
going
what I
to
mean?
learn how to make that. Okay. Because I
And then
just
of
got one
course
of your
I have,
nuts, your nutcracker. I got one
yeah.
this for Christmas.
And we do have like these flavorings sauces that we have saved. We have some incredibly delicious sauces. I like the best is our Thai curry sauce that we have, that you just slap on some wok vegetables. There's a Mexican Olay sauce. We have ananas and some other types of flavorings and seasonings on drfuhrman.com, but not the dukkha flavoring, just other types of flavorings and sauces, mostly to make it so when people don't have time to cook, they can throw some great flavor on by just throwing a couple of tablespoons on their vegetables, and it's done. You know what I mean? We don't always have time to cook a whole fancy meal with a sauce from scratch.
Awesome. Okay, doctor. Okay, so what test should I get to make sure I'm getting everything I need? I am Nutritarian. I'm almost at recommended 21 BMI. Good job, Babette.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Well, I'm suggesting that, like we talked about today, that I'm thinking the most important test people should get now is an omega-3 index test. The lab, LabCorp calls it the omega check, but other tests call it omega-3 index. And again, the ideal level is above 5, and some people could adjust the dosage of the DHA to make sure the level is at least 4.5, but ideally above 5. And then I usually check ferritin to check iron stores, vitamin 25 hydroxy vitamin D, B12 with an MMA and a homocysteine. Certainly the homocysteine can be elevated from B6 or folate deficiency in people eating poorly, but in a person who's eating a Nutritarian diet with all the folate, it's mostly going to be elevated from B12, not from folate deficiency. Mm-hmm. So checking the homocysteine with the MMA and the B12 is an important test as well. And then we get a CBC and I can't think of any tests that are so important, because the other things are usually normal on a vegan diet. But one thing we have to mention is that Nutritarians uniquely, because they're so healthy, have lower circulating white blood cell counts that are so low that a conventional doctor could think there's something wrong with the person. So you could get a blood test for your white blood cell count. It could come back 2.6, and your doctor's going to be freaking out because the normal range is between 5 and 10. And they don't know that 2.6 is normal for a Nutritarian, and that us Nutritarians have rested where we don't have chronic inflammation. So our body doesn't produce so much white blood cells. It makes it so that's why we're protected against COVID, because our white cells and our T cells are rested. They're demarginated. They're in the lymph nodes. They're not actively circulating in the blood. I always say that the flashlight doesn't keep its charge if you keep it turned on all the time. You got to let it store itself with the batteries with the switch turned off. Then when you go to use it, you have fresh batteries. That's how the immune system works.
Absolutely.
The immune system gets stronger in sleep, and it gets stronger when you don't utilize it. And when you have very low inflammation levels in your body, your T cells now have the ability to react rapidly and can even rapidly mutate to learn the shape and the attachment to the virus for a viral attack faster than antibodies can be produced.
Wow.
Your body can make T cells react and kill viruses faster than antibodies can kill viruses. And a Nutritarian has a reactive T cell army ready to go. And our white blood cells are very low. And I'm just telling people, you must be aware, because so many hundreds of people say, my doctor wants to do a bone marrow biopsy, thinking I have cancer because my white cells are low. And I say, tell him to get the bone marrow biopsy for his white cells being too high, not for yours being too low. Lower white blood cells are associated with longer life and lower rates of cancer, and are the hallmark of low inflammation on a Nutritarian diet.
Interesting. That is so true. This is the only diet I promote, which is the Nutritarian lifestyle, Nutritarian diet. And when my friends come over, they get loved with the food that I create, and inspired by Dr. Fuhrman. And it's just been a wonderful change for me. So I'm encouraging all of you as well to consider it too. I know that there are lots of questions here, and I'm glad that all of you are reclaiming your life. Tamara says, Dr. Fuhrman, how often is it that it is reversible from having extreme paralysis and not feeling legs and other extreme damage due to low B12? When is it so extreme? How common is that in someone to recover 100%?
Well, that's a really hard question. I had a guy who came to me years ago who was a national kickbox champion. And he came to me with his brother carrying him into the office because he couldn't walk due to B12 deficiency. He recovered enough so he could walk again, and he was able to be okay, but he couldn't compete at the level of quickness and agility from the nerve issues. So I think that I had another person who came to me who couldn't walk and had nerve damage, B12 deficiency, who was able to walk again and recover. But so the answer is that when it's just tingling, an early stage of B12 deficiency, it usually can be recovered from. But the later stages where a person is paralyzed and can't walk, the possibility exists that you could, that the amount of recovery may not be totally back to normal again. The same thing is true with brain damage from B12 deficiency, which could be also a stage of that. And also dementia is, whether it's B12 deficiency or omega-3 deficiency, is not a totally reversible disease. You could stop its progression, you could help it a little bit, but you can't bring a person back to normal when they come to you when they're already demented. So we really have to prevent this from happening. That's why I'm such a strong and passionate advocate of people having adequate B12 and adequate DHA levels, because once you get demented and you didn't know about it, because I hear these doctors on the video on the internet saying, oh, well, I'll wait if a problem develops, then I'll take DHA. What are you saying? It can't, once your problem develops, you may have irreversible damage. It'll never be normal again.
Yeah.
It's not effective for treatment, it's effective for prevention.
Absolutely. Okay, so Lillian says, Dr. Fuhrman, I have started a Nutritarian plan over and over, and on day 4 or 5, I fail. I have to prepare my life, my family, different meals, and that is where I fail. Any advice on how I can follow the Nutritarian plan in the simplest and least cooking way possible, so that I can follow it and for at least 6 weeks, so that my taste buds can change. And I mean, as I'm reading this is self-sabotage, and of not crave the other standard American or SAD foods.
Right. Well, first of all, we recommend people like that get a separate refrigerator, or at least cordon off a certain section of the refrigerator that's there, or half the refrigerator that's theirs alone, separating their food from other people's food in the house, and store their food in a separate place in the house. And they shouldn't be having to prepare the food for the other family members. If they don't, they can make healthy food and share all the healthy food they make with the other family members, but they shouldn't be forced to be cooking for the unhealthy stuff for other people. If they want to eat unhealthy stuff, let them cook it for themselves. What is it, slavery?
I agree. Well, when I first started eating this way, Robert didn't come in right away. It took him a while. When I was challenged to go raw vegan for 30 days, that was the worst 2 weeks of his life. And so as I started learning about how to prepare foods, I started taking a stand, and I'd say, I'll make something once a month. I'll put it in the freezer, and you can thaw it out if you want to do that. We start negotiating a win-win.
Learn how to cook. Cook yourself.
Yes.
If you want to eat something different. But
That's
here's
right.
the thing is, I also take care of a lot of people like that. And we make these T20 books, these booklets, and that have a whole 21 days of meal plan. They're called T20 because they're lose 10 pounds in 20 days. But the point is that we even have these T20 books where they have a lot of our prepared foods, where they incorporate our soups and our dressings and our sauces, so people don't have to cook. It's like a no-brainer. You just take the vegetables, you open a box of frozen broccoli, and you pour some of the sauce on top take the salad dressing, you open a bag of lettuce, and you have the meal, and a piece of fruit, and you have the meal. And we actually go through 20 days of menu plans where there's some repetition. You might have leftovers the second day, and you might eat the same soup for 3 days. And it's made so you can do it really easy, so the person with no time, a full-time job, 4 kids, and no cooking can still follow the plan.
Absolutely.
So that's what I have a great staff of people that work on my team that are developing these products, including my daughters, developing these products. So we know in the real world, we want to make it easier for people to do this. And it's perfect for this person calling about that issue. And the other thing is that her family has to love and respect her, which means they don't have to eat the way she eats. but they have to learn and understand why she's eating the way she is. Support her with what she wants to do, and
Totally
feel
agree.
proud of her and give her encouragement for what she is doing for bettering their health, even if they feel they're not ready to do it right away. And with that encouragement and care and love and respect for what she's doing, not disrespect, then they can support her and encourage her to be strong and want to stick to what she's doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Dr. Fuhrman. I want to maybe later, if you have some time after that, we can talk a little bit more about that. Please remember, we're giving away 2 of these books Monday. So anybody who's listening, claim it. 407-373-5959. Dr. Fuhrman, I absolutely adore you. Thank you so much for the information that is setting people free and making them aware. So I'm looking forward to our next conversation. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Joel Fuhrman wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Do you have like can you answer 1 or 2 more questions, or do you need to go?
No, I can do a couple more.
Okay. So 1 or 2 more questions. So and after Dr. Fuhrman leaves, I want to address that question of support. I love Dr. Fuhrman, what you were saying. We need to be proud of people. And one of the things, Dr. Fuhrman, that people sabotage because they don't want to change. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't anybody want to be healthy? Why wouldn't people know that this is causing problems? Why wouldn't they want to join in? But it's like hanging out in a room full of heroin addicts and you decide that you want to stop doing heroin, they're going to make you feel bad.
Right. It's funny because we had a woman here who got so excited about getting her health back and losing weight, but she knew when she went home, her family was going to be against it. So she went home for a month or 2 and she came back with her whole family. And they came in, I'm not going to eat this way, and I'm a meat eater. They came in, it was so funny. But they stayed here, I think they were here a month, maybe more. But being here at the retreat and with my lecturing and all our other staff and everything, they got rid of their medical problems, their diabetes went away. The kids' acne cleared up when the eggs in the back of his neck cleared off, the skin got better. They were loving this and they all went back to, it's that when they were exposed to it, they changed their firm and arguments and their viewpoints all changed. And we've seen over the years, people that come to our getaways and events where the husband isn't on board with the wife. He comes to play golf. The wife comes to do the diet and do the yoga, whatever it is. And then at the end of the week, the husband's on board because he heard the lectures. He sat through the lectures.
They're eating all the food.
And he ate the food and he was so, people, if they're exposed to enough of the right information, it's hard to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, for those of you who are interested in going to Dr. Fuhrman's Eat to Live retreat center, it is absolutely beautiful. I've been there. The garden is beautiful, but let him know that Lily sent you. Let him know that Lily sent you because it's just absolutely beautiful. I want Dr. Fuhrman to know that it's worth his time to come in the classroom to help teach you guys. Okay, so Myrna wants to know, how do you lower ferritin levels?
Well, it's usually too high in people because they're eating too much iron, particularly heme iron from red meats. So usually it's one of the risk factors, which red meat is linked to heart disease and even cancer, is that it's so high in heme iron, exposing most people to too much iron. The heme iron in particular is the type of iron that's absorbed so efficiently that the body can't shut down its absorption. Even when your iron stores are high, you keep absorbing more. Whereas the iron from plants, because it's non-heme iron, is not as readily absorbed, and the body can keep it out when you don't need any more iron. Women usually don't have that much problem with too much iron because they're bleeding each month. Many of them are, but men could be even more dangerously hurt by red meat because of the excess amount of iron, leading to their ferritins to be too high. And there are some diseases that result in too high iron stores that shorten people's lives. And those people should really be avoiding iron at all costs.
Very good. Very good.
So that's why when I give people supplements, like I even have a prenatal supplement for women that has some iron in it, and I have one that doesn't have iron in it, because it shouldn't be a cookbook. Some people need a little bit and some people don't need any, and they should do that based on blood levels and not just guess.
Yeah. When I was pregnant, I could not take those vitamins. I could not take them. And I went my whole pregnancy without taking any of those iron supplements or whatever, because it just
Right. And you
made me
probably,
so
right. And
sick.
you may have, right. And if you take iron supplements when you don't need them, and a pregnant woman is just given them by their OB-GYN and they don't need them, it's not good for them or the baby. So it's actually hurtful to take iron supplements when you have an adequate amount already, but it's helpful when you're deficient in it. So we're not all exactly the same here.
Absolutely. I want to remind you all that we're giving away 2 of these books. So claim your health back by writing it below, and make sure. And what I'm going to do is I am going to copy all your questions that we didn't ask today, and we'll ask them next time Dr. Fuhrman comes in. I believe it's, I think we're all booked with you, Dr. Fuhrman, for the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So thank you so much. I know you need to go. Thank you, Dr. Fuhrman. We'll see you next month. And for those of you who would like a copy, for people on podcast, or if you're watching later on, you still can be a part of it too. So 407-373-5959 is how you claim it. You also claim it. And anybody who calls me on the text me on the phone, I will add you. If you just claim it here below, it's not going to do you any good. That's just one part. You see, we got to work a little harder to get this book. And I think next time I'm going to see if we can give away some of the DHA formulas or some of Dr. Fuhrman's vitamins, because I want to get on that one. I don't think I've taken any in a while for that one. So claim it, text it. Here we go. Here we have a text. So keep texting. I'm going to pick everybody who texts me is going to go into the winner's basket, and I'm going to draw 2 names on Monday. So all of you, text people, tell them to join, tell them, spread the good news about the classroom. Where else can you go and watch or listen to this kind of information and feel so educated? That's why this is a classroom, and why the stadium is empty, because you are filling that seat. Fill that seat up and help me fill the classroom up worldwide. Wherever you're at, text, because the algorithms are garbling up the classroom. So make sure you help me grow the classroom by texting this particular class, or any of the classes that we've done. You can send it via email, send it in Messenger, text. But one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to build BitChute. So make sure you go to BitChute. Someone said today they couldn't even find me on BitChute. So I'm going to start putting on, I'll put the BitChute address so people can go and click on it and start signing up. Anyway, what a wonderful way to end the week. Next week, we're going to talk about trapped emotions, how to read lab work so that you know how to interpret it correctly, because a lot of labs are done by people who are unhealthy, and those ranges are for unhealthy people. So how do you read that? Dr. Jennifer Gramath is going to teach us. Dr. Michelle Lamassa is going to be coming back next week, and she's going to teach us more about trapped emotions in the body. And third, we have Geyer Wellness Group coming back to talk about what's keeping you from releasing weight, some of the things that you need to look at. So we're going to have a jam-packed next week, and hopefully that you will put it in your calendar, and please subscribe so that you know who is on I am trying to copy everybody's information here, all your questions. So just in case I missed anything, we'll ask your questions next time Dr. Fuhrman is in the classroom. So we will see you. I am so glad that you could come today. Take care.